You are the witness behind the eyes, the stillness that notices thoughts rise and fall like birds on a thermal. Bodies change, stories change, brain states flicker like city lights after rain, yet the one who is aware of all of it feels strangely unbounded, not squeezed into the skull but present as a quiet luminosity that can include the breath, the room, the horizon. Physics spent a century teasing out what separate means, and the answer kept dissolving. Entangled particles behave like twins finishing each other's sentences across the world. Ask one a question here and, without any signal you can harness, the other's answer there is already aligned. In Bell tests, thought up in the 1960s and hammered on with lasers, superconducting qubits, single photons, and cosmic randomness, nature refuses to play by the script of local, tucked-away properties. Measurements don't just reveal, they help make. And while these correlations don't let messages outrun light, they do say this: at the most elemental level, the universe prefers relationships to things, processes to pebbles, a choreography to a pile of dancers. When you sit with your breath and let the surface weather pass, you can feel an echo of that choreography. Thoughts insist they are the central actors, sensations bang on the drums, emotions try to grab the mic. But awareness is the stage itself. Neuroscience can point to networks, the default mode murmuring about me, the salient system tagging novelty, the frontoparietal crew steering attention, yet the felt fact is simpler. When attention rests as awareness rather than chases contents, the whole orchestra tunes. Coherence rises, noise falls, rhythms couple. That is not mysticism, it is mechanics. Oscillators that are softly coupled begin to synchronize. Heart rate variability evens out, breathing entrains slower waves, cortical networks stop tripping over each other. You haven't escaped biology, you've stopped fighting it, and in that ceasefire the organism reveals a capacity to integrate that is usually buried under alerts. Nonlocality never claims the brain is a radio that receives consciousness from somewhere else. It only says that what we took to be little billiard balls with private ledgers are actually members of a larger accounting. Still, the metaphor is fruitful. If the fabric is fundamentally relational, then the sense that I am only what occupies these centimeters of tissue begins to wobble. With eyes closed, notice how sound arrives without distance. A bird, a truck, a faucet, each appears in the field, and the field has no edges. Even the body arrives as a bouquet of pressures and warmths and tingles inside that edgeless field. You don't push awareness outward, you relax the habit of planting a flag in the head, and what remains is a spaciousness in which head and hand and hum coexist like notes in a chord. From the vantage of that spaciousness, inside and outside are conveniences, useful for traffic and taxes but not final. Physicists tried to corner the universe with loopholes and found the universe kept slipping through. Close the detector loophole with more efficient detectors, it still slips. Close the locality loophole with kilometer-scale separations, it still slips. Let distant quasars toss the coin for your measurement choices so your apparatus cannot conspire, the correlations remain. Correlation is not causation, and entanglement is not a telegraph for thought, but the persistence of that connectedness under harsher and harsher audits whispers a lesson: the roots are braided. If the roots are braided, then the branches can move together without pushing on each other. In inner work, that shows up as a warmth spreading through the chest when attention softens in the gut, a loosening in the jaw when the breath descends to the pelvis, a quieting in the brow when the tongue drops from the roof of the mouth. The organism self-organizes when permitted, because permission restores the couplings that stress severed. Skepticism is healthy. No experiment in physics has shown that a thought can collapse a remote wave function at will, nor that awareness floats off like a radio station after death. But notice the false dichotomy that often sneaks in: either consciousness is a ghost in the machine, or it is nothing but machine. There is another option, threaded through both contemplative practice and careful lab work. Consciousness is a fundamental perspective the universe has on itself at certain scales, and the machine metaphor fails not because there is no mechanism, but because the mechanism is more like music than like cogs. Music has timing, phase, reinforcement, resonance. Pluck a string here, another answer's there. In the brain, gamma rhythms can bind features into a unified perception, slow waves can sweep vast territories into joint repose. None of this proves you are more than matter, it invites you to notice that matter, when arranged as a living system, already exceeds the story you learned about it. So try this experiment, as earnest as any with beam splitters and coincidence counters. Place attention not on breath as an object but on the fact of knowing itself. Without words, sense the sheer isness of experience right now. Sensations bloom and fade, thoughts spin like small weather, but the knowing of them is steady, clear, intimate. Let the body breathe itself. Let the face soften. Notice the room held inside this knowing exactly as the heartbeat is held. Where, precisely, is the border of this knowing? Chase it to the skin, it dissolves in tingles. Chase it to the walls, it dissolves in light and shadow. You will not find it, not because it hides, but because borders belong to the map, and awareness is the space the map floats in. Entanglement swapping shows that two particles that never touched can become correlated because of a measurement performed on their partners. In your life, two parts of yourself that never meet, grief you never voiced, ambition you never admitted, can become reconciled when attention performs its gentle measurement on the right pair, sensation and story, memory and posture. The act of noticing is creative. It does not merely report, it alters the state of what is noticed. This is the mundane miracle behind placebo and nocebo and expectation effects. Belief is not magic, but it is a boundary condition on biology, and boundary conditions shape flows. None of this requires slogans about breaking the rules of matter. It honors matter as the shimmering choreography it always was. The nervous system is not a prison, it is a cathedral of timing. The heart is not a pump only, it is a drummer that lends groove to the band. The breath is not a metronome only, it is a swell that carries the choir between verses. And you, prior to labels, are not the singer or the song, you are the listening that allows music at all. When the listening is deep, the music modulates. When the listening is loving, dissonance resolves. When the listening is wide, separate instruments discover they were playing one piece the whole time. If you want a bridge between equations and experience, let it be this: in a relational universe, attention is your local handle on participation. Attend with scatter, you get noise. Attend with steadiness, you get coherence. Attend with curiosity, you get new degrees of freedom that were always there but unexercised. Physics says correlations can be stronger than any local hidden script admits. Practice says wholeness can be felt more directly than any narrative permits. Neither grants you powers that cancel gravity, both reveal you were never only the weight that gravity measures. You are the field in which weight is noticed, the space in which the body arises, the clarity that can include a thought and let it go, include a fear and let it breathe, include a future and let it arrive on its own schedule, like a photon choosing a path only when you ask it a real question. There is a family of experiments that sharpen the lesson of non-locality until it feels almost personal. In delayed choice setups, you decide how to measure only after a photon has already entered a maze, yet the pattern you observe behaves as if the choice reached backward to influence what happened. In entanglement swapping, two particles that never met end up correlated because their partners were measured in a particular joint way. The network, not the nodes, carries the meaning. None of this lets information outrun light or grants paranormal messaging. It does something subtler and more radical. It erases the picture of the world as made of sealed boxes with little labels inside. The picture that fits the data best is a web of constraints where outcomes crystallize together. When you train attention, you notice the same shift in your inner physics. Instead of yanking on one symptom, you change a boundary condition, posture softens, breath lengthens, language pauses, and many variables settle at once. You are not forcing isolated parts, you are participating in a pattern. Reports of awareness, outside the body, can be explored without superstition or dismissal. Neuroscience has learned how to bend self-location with simple tricks. vibrate a rubber hand in sync with your own and the brain adopts it, show a live video feed from behind you with tactile cues and the center of, I am here, jumps backward, stimulate the temporal-parietal junction and people report floating near the ceiling. None of that proves consciousness leaves, it proves that body maps are models the brain keeps updating. During trauma, anesthesia, hypoxia, deep meditation, or dreamlike transitions, those models can loosen, and experience can unfold with the body no longer the anchor point. Some cardiac arrest studies suggest islands of organized neural activity and later recall even when ordinary markers go quiet. Skeptics point to residual microactivity and memory reconstruction. Both sides agree the subjective impact is large. What seems consistent is this: the felt identity can decouple from the usual coordinates, and when it does, people often return less afraid, more altruistic, and more curious. Whether you read that as chemistry or as a glimpse of a wider field, the practical takeaway is the same: your sense of me here is plastic, and skillful attention can reshape it in life-affirming ways. Treat meditation as a laboratory. When you broaden focus to include sound, sight, touch, and thought with equal weight, the ownership tags blur. The chest is no longer my chest, it is warmth dancing in awareness. The buzzing in the calf is no longer my leg, it is vibration in a boundless field. This is not dissociation, it is decentering. Physiologically, slow nasal breathing nudges the vagus, heart rate variability smooths, insular cortex tracks interoception with less alarm, and large-scale brain networks slip from rigid segregation into flexible cooperation. Subjectively, the perimeter of the I relaxes. The body remains precious, but it is no longer the prison guard of identity, it is one choir section among many, and awareness is the room where the choir sings. Notice how belief acts like a tunable parameter in this system. Expectation effects, placebo responses, meaning responses, whatever you call them, alter pain, immune markers, motor performance, even the arc of recovery. That is not sorcery, it is top-down modulation changing the gain on midbrain and brainstem circuits, altering hormone pulses and inflammatory cascades. When the story in the head says, threat, the organism prepares to fight. When the story says, safe, the organism permits repair. The point is not to bully yourself into positive thinking, it is to see that attention and interpretation are part of the causal web. In a relational universe, the stance you take is one of the relations that matters. Quantum non-locality stays in physics, but its mood leaks into practice. Correlation without push suggests coherence without strain. You can cultivate coherence. Sit with a soft gaze, let peripheral vision flood, release the tongue from the palate, allow the breath to widen the back ribs. As posture and breath entrain slower rhythms, faster bands can ride in harmony, moments of whole field clarity arrive where seeing, hearing, and sensing feel like one fabric. In those moments you do not vanish, you become less localized. The mind is not gone, it is transparent. Choices still happen, they are not authored by a cramped commentator but invited by a wider intelligence that includes gut, heart, and the quiet readout of the room. Skeptics ask for mechanisms, offer them timing. Coherent states do work with less waste. When cortical oscillations align, information integrates more readily. When the sympathetic drive is not chronically redlined, the immune system stops defending against imaginary tigers and updates to real repairs. When the story engine is not monopolizing bandwidth, sensory detail brightens and empathy has room to compute. That is why compassion practice changes behavior without moralizing. Modeling the other inside your own field is a neural act that leaves traces in your future priors. It is also why resentment feels expensive. It keeps the field phase split and forces the organism into perpetual error correction. Think of satellites distributing entanglement across continents. Think of families distributing calm across generations. A parent who can feel before reacting reduces noise at the household boundary, and the whole network reorganizes downstream. You will not bend a photon with kindness, but you can bend a Tuesday. Begin with small experiments that would pass peer review in your own life. 3 minutes of panoramic attention before a difficult conversation, 10 breaths with deliberate exhales when the screen scroll hooks you, naming sensations instead of narrating motives when the inner critic wakes. Track outcomes. Does clarity increase? Do unnecessary moves fall away? Does the day feel less like friction and more like flow? If consciousness were only neurons, it would still be miraculous, chemistry making a sky for colors and a hearth for meaning. If consciousness is also a basic aspect of the world that neurons reveal, the invitation deepens. Either way, the practice is identical: refine the instrument, widen the field, notice how experience self-organizes when you stop oversteering. The old claim, "You are not the body, not the mind," can be read as an insult to flesh or as a liberation for it. Choose the reading that yields kindness. You are the capacity in which body and mind appear, the openness that can host pain without collapsing, the clarity that can meet joy without clinging. When that capacity is recognized, action becomes cleaner, rest becomes real, and the boundary between me and here and world out there softens into participation. In that participation, the science of non-local connection and the art of being human touch the same edge, and then the edge dissolves. When you look closely at experience, you notice the brain is a prediction engine that paints a convincing world and then updates that painting with each breath of evidence. The sense of being a body in a place is one of its best paintings. It knits together signals from joints and skin and viscera, wraps them in memory and language, and the result feels solid because it is useful. But usefulness is not ultimacy. In deep rest, the prediction engine turns down its certainty, the canvas shows its weave, perception admits more of the raw, shimmering flux underneath. Predictive models keep you alive, awareness keeps you honest about what the models are, maps, not the terrain. When the map softens, the "I" that was pinned to a point behind the eyes loosens and spreads, not as a fantasy but as a direct felt shift. Sounds land where they are without triangulation. The breath is not in my chest so much as the world gently breathing itself. Space is not outside the skull but continuous with the field of knowing. Physics offers a parallel through constraint, not magic. In a non-local world, outcomes are stitched by relationships that do not resemble little mechanical pushes. You cannot use that stitching to send a secret faster than light, yet you must use it to describe what actually happens. In inner work, the equivalent is this recognition: instead of tugging on isolated parts, mindset here, muscle there, you alter the couplings. Lengthen the exhale and the heart listens, soften the gaze and the cortex stops hoarding resources, release the tongue and the jaws weather clears, open attention to the room and the default narration quiets because there is suddenly more to compute than the old story. The organism prefers harmony when given a chance, just as a set of metronomes on a shared board will fall into step without a conductor. You are not forcing calm, you are removing the friction that prevented it. People sometimes report leaving the body in dreams, in anesthesia, in crisis, in meditation. A cautious reading does not trivialize the experience or inflate it beyond evidence. Self-location is a construction, the reference frame can drift. The temporoparietal junction helps tether, here-ness, loosen its grip and the center of gravity for, I am, can migrate. Whether consciousness itself roams or the map redraws is a live debate, but the training implication is clear: identity can widen. Practice that widening while you are safe and awake. Let attention rest as a sphere that includes sound and distant horizon, the coolness on the cheeks, the low thrum of appliances, the rhythm of the heart. Notice how quickly ownership tags fall away when the field is broad. Sensations are not mine, they are features of one continuous tapestry. That recognition is not dissociation, it is intimacy with everything at once. Even biology hints that exquisite physics can live in warm, wet places. In photosynthetic complexes, energy seems to sample paths in parallel before landing. In certain birds, chemical reactions act like tiny compass needles that depend on delicate quantum phases. None of that licenses extravagant claims about thought steering electrons across a room. It does license humility about writing off subtle order in living systems. The brain is a storm of rhythms from slow cortical drifts to rapid gamma bursts. Coherence is a resource you can cultivate. When rhythms align across regions, integration improves. When the autonomic sees no tiger in the grass, inflammation stands down and repair gets budget. When interoception is welcomed rather than feared, the body's data stops arriving as alarms and starts arriving as guidance. If you want to test this without slogans, use the day as your apparatus. Before opening a message that usually spikes your pulse, broaden vision until you can see both hands and the periphery at once, let the breath descend into the back of the ribs, and place attention on the whole room rather than the rectangle of the screen. Watch what happens to the tone of thought. In conversation, feel the soles of your feet as you listen, let the other person's voice be a vibration occurring inside the shared field rather than an arrow shot at your head. During a walk, permit the eyes to rest on far distances, rooftops, clouds, while holding a gentle awareness of the body moving through space. The nervous system reads horizon as safety and downshifts its vigilance. Each of these is a tiny boundary condition change, none requires belief, all can be measured subjectively as a decrease in scatter and an increase in ease. The old metaphysical claim that you are not the body and not the mind becomes practical when translated into timing and attention. You are the capacity that can include body and mind without being limited to their current contents. When the capacity is recognized, agency becomes cleaner, choices unfold from a wider view, impulses have room to dissipate without acting themselves out, creativity arrives like a crossfade rather than a fight. This is not passivity. In music, a rest is not silence, it is a sculpted emptiness that gives the next note meaning. In awareness, non-doing is not laziness, it is the pause that lets systems couple. You feel it as a spreading wakefulness in the chest, a softening of the brow, a relief that needs no reason. There is a temptation to turn this into metaphors of broadcasting and receivers, to claim that the brain is a radio tuning a cosmic signal. The image can inspire but it also misleads. What matters in lived practice is that the more you align posture, breath, and attention with conditions that favor coherence, the more experience behaves like one thing rather than many quarrels. In those moments, the boundary between inside and outside gets thin. The city hum is not an intrusion but a note in the chord, the ache in the shoulder is not a problem to solve but a message that can be heard without panic, the thought of tomorrow is not a dictator but a weather report. From here, kindness is efficient. It reduces error correction cycles in the people around you and in yourself. Calm is contagious in networks because nervous systems are exquisitely social sensors. You can prove that at any dinner table by being the one who breathes slower. If you want to court the sense of presence beyond the skin without stories, take up a simple evening ritual. Dim the lights, let the room be quiet or filled with soft, unpatterned sound. Sit or lie down as if you were about to sleep but not yet. Let the breath lengthen on the exhale, let the tongue rest heavy, feel the back of the heart as if it were a window. Instead of focusing on any single sensation, tune to the total. Feel the total as one event. When the mind grasps for an object, breath, mantra, image, thank it and return to the total. Minutes later, notice whether the location of I is obvious. Often it is not. Often, I is identical to the awareness of the total, and the body, precious as it is, floats like a constellation within it. Stay there long enough and sleep will take you, wake in the night and the same total is waiting, calm as a lake that remembers the stars. Everything here remains inside science's guardrails, no secret channels, no rules broken. The boldness is in taking seriously what both physics and first-person practice imply, relation is primary, and attention is how we participate in that relation. When you participate as the open field rather than the narrow commentator, experience reorganizes in ways that feel like freedom. Not because you left matter behind, but because you finally met matter as it is, pattern, process, music, and discovered that consciousness is the listening that lets it become a song. Call this stance radical sobriety, nothing supernatural required, yet nothing essential dismissed. In that sobriety, even the strangest quantum experiments become invitations to refine how you pay attention. A photon that decides whether it was a wave or a particle after the fact is not a ghost of causation, it is a reminder that outcomes live in the web of conditions, and measurement is one of those conditions. In your interior lab, the parallel is clean. Label a sensation as pain with dread and it amplifies, label it as intense heat that will crest and fall, and the wave changes shape. You did not break a rule of biology, you altered the boundary conditions of prediction and control. The organism updates its model and recruits different resources. That is what attention is at scale, model revision in real time. If awareness can notice a thought without being inside it, what stops it from noticing the body without being trapped in it? The answer is habit, not physics. Habits of pinning I am to the head, habits of treating sensations as private property, habits of fighting what already is. When those habits ease, awareness feels less like a flashlight and more like daylight. A flashlight must point, daylight includes. Practice inclusion. Let the hum of the refrigerator, the weight of the clothes, the faint taste in the mouth, the breath in the back ribs, the distant traffic all arrive as one field. Stay with the total for 30 slow breaths. The perimeter of me becomes porous, and what remains is intimacy with everything that shows up, including the body, now freed from the pressure to be a fortress. Reports of tunnels, lights, life reviews, ceilings watched from above, treat them as data points in a landscape where self-location is malleable. Some will be memory reconstruction, some will be dream logic, some may be windows into brain states where the mapping engine relaxes its clamps. The lesson for practice is generous either way, you do not need extraordinary events to taste that spaciousness. You can cultivate it on a Tuesday afternoon by removing the strain that narrows perception. Lower the shoulders as if hearing good news. Let the eyes receive instead of hunt. Extend the exhale until the body chooses the inhale by itself. As vigilance downshifts, the field widens, and the sense of I is no longer a pin on a map but the whole sky the map floats in. Non-local correlation is not a license to send thoughts across oceans, it is a mirror for how coherence works. Choirs do not project sound faster than light, yet a single pitch can line up dozens of throats into one tone. Your systems want that. Heart rhythm entrains with breath, visceral rhythms entrain with posture, cortical rhythms entrain with the scope of attention. The more you let subsystems keep time together, the less effort it takes to act. Creativity stops arriving as sparks that burn you out and starts arriving as a current that carries. Decisions feel less like coin flips and more like resolutions to wave equations under clear constraints. You know because there is less friction, less aftertaste, fewer apologies to make. Skepticism can be a friend if it keeps you honest rather than small. Keep asking, what, precisely, changed? When you rest as awareness of the total, time feels different, often more spacious, sometimes slower. That has correlates, default mode chatter reduces, task-positive networks can share bandwidth without tripping breakers, sensory precision increases, and prediction errors are processed without catastrophizing. You feel it as a softness that is not dull, a clarity that is not brittle. From that clarity, you can examine cherished stories, about your limits, your past, your enemies, without the reflex to defend them. The story engine does not shut down, it loses the monopoly on truth. There is a dignity in treating mind training with the same care you grant any experiment. Define a protocol. For 2 weeks, mark 3 anchors in the day, immediately after waking, midway through the afternoon, just before sleep. At each anchor, take 3 minutes of panoramic attention, the whole field at once. Track simple outcomes, resting pulse before and after, number of reactive emails drafted and not sent, the half-life of annoyance after a surprise. Do not fish for miracles, look for reduced wasted motion. Look for the flavor of ease that makes you more capable, not less engaged. If the numbers and notes do not change, adjust the protocol, try eyes open versus closed, seated versus lying down, breath-led versus sound-led. Curiosity is the method. If you are not the body, not the mind, sounds like an escape clause, translate it more kindly. you are not only the body or only the mind, you are the capacity that can include them both. That capacity is practical. It lets you hold grief without drowning, joy without clinging, fear without obeying. It lets you read a difficult message and feel heat in the chest, tightness in the throat, buzzing in the hands, and choose to breathe, to widen vision, to write back tomorrow. It lets you meet another person's pain as part of the same field rather than as a threat to your borders. In networks, this reduces noise. In families, this changes inheritance. Calm and clarity propagate as surely as panic does. You become a phase reference others can lock to. Even your language can become part of the apparatus. Swap, I am anxious, for anxiety is present. Swap, my back is killing me, for there is intense sensation in the back that rises and falls. This is not euphemism, it is accurate reporting. You are awareness in which states occur. States are not identity. Identity shrinks when glued to states, and suffering grows. Identity widens when it rests as the field, and capacity grows. From capacity, action is simpler, you apologize sooner, you stop arguing with physics, you make the call you were avoiding, you drink water, you go outside, you return to the work that matters. If you want a direct taste right now, close the eyes and listen for the faintest sound you can hear, maybe the highest hiss in the room, maybe your own breath, maybe distant traffic. Hold that and also notice the heaviest sensation, perhaps the seat, the feet, the weight of the hands. Now include both at once without effort. Add one more element, the play of visual afterglow behind the eyelids, or the memory of the room's light. Let all three be present in one field. Where is the listener located? Where, exactly, is the feeler? The question loosens. What remains is experience occurring as one event, and you as the knowing of that event. Stay until the nervous system takes the hint and retunes. There is no need to force meaning onto this. Meaning grows naturally when noise drops and participation rises. The physics points to a universe woven of relations, the practice reveals a life woven of the same. You are not the puppet of matter, and you are not a ghost outside it. You are the clarity that lets matter show its music. When clarity is stable, the ordinary becomes luminous. Washing a cup feels like closing a circuit, a conversation feels like tuning two instruments, a walk feels like sharing phase with a neighborhood. In that ordinariness, the old claim makes sense in plain language: you are not confined to the body or the mind, you are the awareness in which both appear, the openness that can host any weather and remain sky. Keep practicing until the sky is obvious, and the weather, however wild, is just another way the sky shows itself. Let your days become experiments in widening identity. Each morning, before the calendar floods in, sit at the edge of the bed and notice the moment before a single thought completes. In that instant there is experience without a narrator, sound, light, sensation, all already present, already whole. Watch how quickly the brain claims authorship, how it pins a flag on a point behind the eyes and says, "This is me." You do not need to fight the claim, you can simply refrain from endorsing it. Let the claim be another event inside awareness, as uncontroversial as a bird call. The longer you stay with experience as a total rather than experience as mine, the more the organism downsamples noise. Posture untangles. Breath lengthens on its own. The weight you thought you had to carry reveals itself as tension you were rehearsing. Nonlocality's lesson is not romance, it is precision about wholeness. Bell's inequalities are constraints on stories we're allowed to tell about the world. When experiments violate them, they do not hand you a hotline to the cosmos, they tell you that separate parts cannot be fully described without their relations. Translate that to practice. You cannot be fully described without the relations you inhabit: gravity, breath, memory, language, culture, other nervous systems. Awareness is the only vantage that can hold all those at once without contracting into one. When you rest as that holding, choices emerge that respect more variables. This feels like wisdom because it is: fewer unintended consequences, fewer repairs later, more elegance now. There are evenings when the body feels like a crowded room. Sensations tumble over each other, thought loops look for a latch, the chest hums with unresolved electricity. Treat it as an engineer would treat a coupled system running hot. Remove load, increase airflow, let subsystems find a shared clock. In human terms, dim the lights, let the jaw fall from the palate, widen the eyes focus until peripheral vision floods, and extend the exhale until the inhale returns by reflex. Add one more move, attend to the space behind the back, as if your awareness could lean into the wall and further, noticing the room's volume, not just its contents. Very often, that single shift, attention including the space behind, unsticks the forward-hunting bias and the whole system rephases. It is fashionable to treat near-death reports as either proof of immortality or proof of wishful thinking. A sober third way honors the phenomenology and the physiology. Self-location is negotiated by multisensory maps. Under stress, anesthesia, hypoxia, or deep calm, those maps can loosen. The result can be a perspective that feels exterior to the body, with memory traces laid down that later carry moral weight. People return changed, less afraid, more attuned to what matters. You need not wait for extremes to touch that widening. You can cultivate map flexibility with gentle drills. Feel the soles of the feet while listening to a distant sound, hold both with equal vividness, add the coolness on the cheek, include the whole room as one event. When 3 or 4 channels are held together without strain, ownership tags evaporate and presence becomes spacious without becoming vague. Language is a lever for identity. I am angry, weld state to self, anger is present, places state inside awareness. The second phrasing is not a trick, it is a truer description of what is already the case. Test it during conflict. Keep the body open, elbows untucked, palms softened, gaze panoramic, and report the field rather than the story. I feel heat in my face and pressure in my throat. I want to defend. I'm going to breathe for 3 counts. Watch how quickly the room's physics changes when one nervous system stops acting like a point source of threat and starts behaving like a wide field that can include threat without amplifying it. Social coherence is not mystical, it is coupling between exquisitely sensitive prediction engines standing a meter apart. The brain's rhythms are not a metaphor, they are mechanics. Slow oscillations set the stage for integration. Faster bands ride them to bind features into a single scene. When you narrow attention to a grievance, you desynchronize your own orchestra, limbic horns overblow, frontal strings try to conduct everything, percussion forgets the groove. When you widen attention, you restore the downbeat. Try it during work. Before opening the difficult document, lift your gaze to the farthest visible point, sky, roofline, horizon, then return to the screen while keeping a whisper of that distance in awareness. The nervous system reads horizon as safety, safety frees resources, resources raise precision, precision reduces the need for brute force. Effort drops, quality rises. That is coherence doing work. Skepticism remains a guardrail. You will not transmit intent to a photon in another city. But you will transmit posture, breath, and tone to the people in your home and team, and their bodies will mirror you faster than their beliefs will. Quiet a meeting not by ordering quiet but by becoming it, breathe slower, let your shoulders be heavy and your jaw released, speak 5% softer, and keep peripheral vision on. Other systems detect the reduced error signals and begin to entrain. The result looks like leadership because it is. You changed conditions so that better dynamics became cheaper to maintain. On hard days, when grief or fear compresses the field into a fist, give yourself a laboratory protocol that honors both science and kindness. 3 phases, 10 minutes total. Phase 1, orientation, name 5 far sounds, 5 near sounds, 5 tactile sensations, this stabilizes the map. Phase 2, inclusion, hold sound, touch, and breath together as one event, this widens identity. Phase 3, intention, state out loud one boundary condition you will set for the next hour, phrased positively and operationally. I will answer messages only at the top of each hour, I will pause 3 breaths before I hit send, I will move my body for 2 minutes between tasks. Track outcomes. If the protocol doesn't change the day's physics, adjust it. Curiosity, not judgment, is the method. There is elegance in treating sleep as sacred engineering. During deep non-REM, entire cortices drop into slow waves that sweep like tides, the glymphatic system clears, memory consolidates and reconsolidates. If you are training for clarity, guard sleep like a craftsperson guards tools. Let the last light be warm and low, the last word spoken softly, the last minutes of awareness be panoramic rather than tunneled into a phone. Fall asleep as the field, not as the commentator. Often you awake nearer to it, and the day will inherit that phase. If the old line, "You are not the body, not the mind," still feels like a rejection, translate it into participation. You are not confined to any single thing you can point at, you are the capacity that can include all of it. From that capacity, flesh is honored, tools are sharp, relationships are tended, and physics is loved for what it reveals. We live in a world where relation is primary and where attention is a local way to join the relation well. Join it well and even ordinary chores glow with the clarity of a solved equation. Join it well and the boundary between me and world softens into collaboration, where each breath is both yours and the room's, and each step is both the body's and the earth's. Keep going. Keep testing. Keep refining the instrument. Not because there is a finish line where you become untouchable, but because each incremental drop in noise lets more of life's signal through. The miracle is not elsewhere, it is how ordinary experience behaves when you stop narrowing it to a point. In that spacious, precise ordinariness, the claim becomes simple and lived. You are not merely the body or the mind, you are the awareness that holds them, and from that awareness, you can meet the world with sobriety, warmth, and the kind of freedom that looks like deep responsibility. What changes most, as practice deepens, is your relationship to certainty. The predictive brain loves to lock in a plot. I am this kind of person, this feeling means danger, this sensation will get worse, because fixed plots conserve energy. But certainty bought too early is expensive later, it forces the organism to keep editing evidence to protect yesterday's story. When you rest as awareness, plots loosen at the edges. Sensations can be what they are without a fast label, the nervous system stops paying the tax of constant defense, curiosity returns as a default setting. Curiosity is not the opposite of rigor, curiosity is rigor's oxygen. Bell tests were acts of curiosity disciplined into apparatus. Your day can be the same, disciplined questions asked of your own experience with kindness and clear measurement. Even identity turns out to be a tool you can set down and pick up. Split brain work showed how a narrative self can confabulate to keep a feeling of unity. Rubber hand and body swap illusions showed how the map of me updates when vision and touch align. Tool use extends peripersonal space so that a stick or a racket feels temporarily included in the body's reach. None of this argues that you are vapor, it argues that, I am only what is inside this skin, is a convenience, not a law. When the convenience is mistaken for a law, fear blooms at any boundary violation. When it is seen as a tool, flexibility appears, you can widen to include the room, the other person's voice, the horizon, and act from a perspective that is larger than your old reflex. Quantum experiments keep teaching the same moral about stories. We tried to tell a local hidden variable story, the data said no. We tried to save a classical picture with gentle loopholes, the cosmos closed them with better detectors, wider separations, randomness borrowed from starlight. The lesson is not that anything goes, it's that the right story is more relational, less clockwork. Practice takes the hint. Instead of commanding the mind to be quiet, you alter relations, between breath and heart, gaze and cortex, language and limbic tone. In that altered relation, chatter falls not by force but by irrelevance. Quiet becomes cheaper than noise. Pain becomes a teacher when language stops welding it to identity. I am broken, seals a fate, intense sensation is arising and changing, preserves degrees of freedom. Attention can then enter the sensation and map it precisely, edges, center, waves, pauses, until fear dissolves into detail. Detail down-regulates alarm. The spinal gate opens and closes differently. The cortex updates its priors. You have not overruled biology, you have given biology better data. In the same way, emotions cease being orders and become information. Anger can be heat and forward energy, sadness can be heaviness and the impulse to fold, fear can be electricity and the urge to scan. When the field is wide enough to hold these impulses without acting them out, choice returns. Coherence is not an aesthetic preference, it is a resource that changes what problems are solvable. Breathing at a steady, easy rhythm entrains heart rhythms. Entrained heart rhythms improve baroreflex sensitivity. Better baroreflex gives the brainstem cleaner status reports. Cleaner reports free the cortex from constant firefighting. Perception sharpens. Working memory stops dropping frames. Kindness requires less effort because the organism is no longer rationing energy. That is why panoramic vision helps in stress. The nervous system reads wide angle as safety. Safety lets the prefrontal cortex do its subtle work. Subtle work solves what brute force cannot. You feel this as a day with fewer wasted moves, fewer edits, and a gentler cost curve for doing the right thing. Reports of consciousness, outside, are often framed as all or nothing, either proof of the soul or proof of delusion. A more fruitful frame treats them as windows onto the looseness of self-location and the durability of awareness as a mode. Even when the map floats, knowing persists. That persistence is what practice aims at in ordinary life, not to flee the body, but to discover the knowing that can include the body and remain steady while maps redraw. From that steadiness, loss is still loss and love is still love, but neither needs to collapse the field. Grief can move through without becoming your name, joy can visit without demanding you chain it to the porch. You can demonstrate non-local flavor in social space without leaving science. Place two musicians in a room, give them a tempo and a key, do not let them speak. Minutes later you will hear coherence that did not travel as a message but emerged as phase alignment. Families do this for better and for worse. One anxious body can phase split a house, one regulated body can knit it back together. This is not mystical contagion, this is nervous systems reading posture, breath, micro-expressions, and timing at astonishing speed and revising their priors. Lead with your body when words fail, slower exhale, softer eyes, weight in the feet, voice that lands low and warm. Let the room update. It often will. On the edge of sleep and waking, practice the art of de-anchoring gently. Lie on your back and feel the back body, heels, calves, hips, ribs, shoulder blades, skull, like stones resting in a lake. Then notice sound arriving from all directions at once, not in front versus behind but as a sphere. Let the visual field behind closed eyes be part of the same event, the grain, the pulses, the darkness. Do nothing. If a thought arises, let it be another texture in the lake, not a command post. Sometimes you will slip into sleep as the field, sometimes you will stay awake and feel the location of I become ambiguous in a way that is calm, not alarming. That ambiguity is a taste of freedom, identity less pinned, presence more available. Purpose does not disappear in this spaciousness, it clarifies. The fewer cycles lost to self-contraction, the more bandwidth for building, serving, creating. Action taken from the field has a different signature, clean starts, clean stops, fewer apologies. You can feel the difference in your own aftertaste. When a decision harmonizes more variables, the body says yes without the tightness of righteousness. When a decision is a defense of an old identity, the body whispers no even as the mouth insists otherwise. Trust the physiology when the field is wide, it is reading more of the world than the narrating voice can track. If you crave evidence that practice is real, measure what you can. Resting pulse, sleep latency, time to recover after a spike, the number of times you catch and revise a reactive email, the cadence of your steps after a difficult call, the half-life of resentment. Track for a month. Celebrate small deltas. Let the numbers make humility and confidence possible at once. Humility because change is slower than fantasies promise. Confidence because change is undeniable when you stop relying on mood as your only metric. This is how physics earned its authority, not by swagger but by repeatable effects. The old line, "You are not the body, not the mind," lands differently when heard as an invitation to precision rather than a metaphysical slogan. It asks you to notice the one constant in your day, the capacity to know experience. Thoughts come and go, sensations bloom and fade, roles shift, names change, yet knowing remains available. Rest as that availability often enough, and an ordinary morning lights up without fireworks. The cup is warmer, the air cooler, the street louder, and none of it is a problem. The body is honored as instrument, the mind is honored as composer, and you are the listening that lets the music happen at all. Keep refining. When the breath is short, widen the view. When the view is narrow, include sound. When sound is loud, include touch. When touch is overwhelming, include space. When space feels empty, include the heart as warmth, not as a story. When the story insists, write it down and return to the field. This is not avoidance, it is sequencing. Sequence well and life's hardest movements, conflict, illness, grief, become playable without breaking the instrument. Sequence well and love stops being a bargain and becomes an atmosphere. Sequence well and the non-local lesson of physics stops being a curiosity and becomes your style of being. Less push, more participation, less noise, more signal, less possession, more presence. Practice also changes how you relate to time. The narrating mind slices moments into before/after and guards the slice with tension. But awareness can hold a whole arc at once, the way a musician holds a phrase, not rushing the downbeat, not clinging to the sustain, not dramatizing the rest. In that holding, urgency loses its counterfeit authority. You still meet deadlines, you just stop borrowing cortisol to pay for them. The body reads this as steadier heart intervals, fewer micro-flinches in the jaw, smoother eye saccades. The mind reads it as a new affordability of nuance. You can hear another person's subtext without needing to win the sentence. Non-locality keeps pressing the same lesson in the lab, tighten the rules and relation still shines through. Teams have pulled settings from human keystroke randomness and from ancient starlight so the apparatus can't cheat, and the correlations persist. Satellites have stitched entanglement across long distances and the correlations persist. The message is not that mind floats above matter, it's that the world is more network than machine. When you live as if network were primary, you stop trying to move everything by pushing. You change conditions so the right pattern becomes the easy one. That's why 3 breaths taken with soft eyes can transform a meeting faster than 3 arguments can. You're not persuading, you're defrictioning. Let self-inquiry be minimalist and precise. Ask, what is here without effort? Sound is here. Contact is here. Light is here. Knowing is here. Now ask, where is the knower located? Wait for an answer you can point to. You will find sensations, images, and words. You will not find a boundary of knowing. That absence is not a void, it is capacity. From capacity, the body is honored, because it is not being asked to carry identity on its back. From capacity, the mind is honored, because it is not being asked to manufacture reality, only to model it well and admit updates fast. Pain, fear, and grief do not vanish in this stance, they become tractable. Pain becomes texture with edges that move. Fear becomes voltage that can be grounded through breath and stance. Grief becomes weight that asks to be supported by posture, community, and ritual. Report all 3 with engineering honesty: what, where, how intense, how it changes, so the organism can regulate with data rather than with legend. This is unbearable, is legend. There is a pressure wave moving from throat to sternum at 6 breaths per minute, is data. Data invites help from spinal gating, baroreflex, vagal tone, prefrontal reframing. Legend invites more legend. If you want the bodily taste of not only the body, walk outside and do horizon practice. Let your gaze settle on the farthest feature you can see while keeping a whisper of awareness on the soles of your feet. Add the breath moving the back ribs. Now include ambient sound as one sphere rather than as separate sources. Hold all of it at once for one city block. Note the effect on thought density. Note the quality of decisions made in the next hour. When attention is global, local problems often solve at lower cost because you are computing with a bigger dataset. Treat language as instrumentation. Replace always/never with often/rarely. Swap I can't for I don't know how yet. Turn why am I like this into what conditions make this cheaper to repeat. Each swap is a boundary condition nudge away from identity claims and toward experiment. Identity claims lock priors, experiments update them. This is the quiet power behind expectation effects. They are not magic spells, they are model settings. Set them consciously and physiology follows because physiology must act under some model, and yours is the nearest. The brain's predictive engine loves ownership because ownership simplifies bookkeeping. Practice loosens the ledger. In the rubber hand illusion, the map widens to include fake fingers. In tool use, peripersonal space expands so a racket feels like part of reach. In deep attention, the map can widen to include the entire sensory field as one body. You are not dissociating, you are upgrading the coordinate system. From that coordinate system, compassion stops being a moral performance and becomes perceptual accuracy. The other really is inside the same field right now. Helping them help stabilize your own dynamics because the field you share calms. Let nights be part of the lab. As you lie down, place attention on the back body as a single surface, heels, calves, hips, ribs, scapulae, skull, and imagine the mattress rising to meet you rather than you sinking. This reverses the habitual push and signals supported to midbrain circuits. Add an easy count on exhale, 4 or 6, without forcing inhale. If thoughts hook you, narrate the field in 3 nouns, warmth, hum, darkness. Repeat. Most evenings you will pass the baton to sleep without drama. Some evenings you will remain awake but unbothered, located as the space in which wakefulness happens. Use relationships as real-time bell tests for your practice. Can you feel your partner's words as vibration in a shared air before you feel them as verdicts about you? Can you keep a sliver of awareness on the soles of your feet while you apologize? Can you hear your own voice as sound in the room while you set a boundary? These micro moves don't make you passive, they make you precise. Precision reduces escalation because fewer prediction errors need to be defended with volume. Purpose sharpens when noise drops. You may discover that the work you imagined required a dramatic new self actually requires a quieter one who keeps promises to the calendar, to sleep, to breath, to teammates. You may find that creativity shows up less as lightning and more as a reliable current that runs when you keep the wiring clean. You may notice that courage is not the absence of fear but the willingness to widen the field until fear is one texture among many, not the whole screen. Keep simple metrics. How many times today did you catch and revise a reactive reply? How quickly did your pulse return to baseline after a spike? How often did you remember the horizon? How many repairs did you make without being asked? These are coherence scores, not moral scores. They tell you whether the system you live as is coupling well with its context. And when the old line returns, you are not the body, not the mind, hear it now as an operational definition of freedom. You are not confined to any single content of experience, you are the capacity for experience. From capacity, body and mind become instruments you can tune rather than cages you must escape. Tuning is daily, local, testable. You will know it is working because ordinary moments start to carry the signature of right relation, less push, more glide, less certainty, more clarity, less possession, more participation. Keep going until that signature is common, and when it fades, as it will, treat that, too, as data, and return to the simplest move, include more of the field and let the pattern reorganize. Let attention become how you engineer context. Instead of forcing outcomes, you set the room so the right outcome is cheap. A violin stays in tune when the humidity is right. Your nervous system does the same with small boundary tweaks. 2 examples you can test today. First, the 90-second reset. Widen the gaze until you see both hands without moving them, exhale longer than you inhale, and label 3 sensations by quality: pressure, warmth, vibration. Do this before opening a message you dread. Second, the ramp down. In the last 10 minutes of work, close loops physically, stack papers, rename files, clear the desk, while keeping awareness on the whole room. The body reads, closure, sleeps sooner, and tomorrow starts with less drag. No metaphysics, just physics applied to behavior. Memory is not a vault, it is wet clay. When you recall, you rewrite. That is risky when fear runs the pen and useful when safety holds the page. Pair an upsetting memory with high-resolution interoception in a regulated state, slow exhale, soft jaw, feet heavy, and let the image play while you keep anchoring in the body's signals of safety. This is not erasure, it is reconsolidation with better boundary conditions. The narrative loses its monopoly, the body stops treating Tuesday like the tiger that never was. You have not changed the past, you have changed the model that predicts the future. Practice also refines precision without brittleness. Precision here means your system distinguishes signal from noise with less effort. Breath becomes data, not drama. A colleague's tone is parsed as tiredness, not hostility. The ache in the shoulder is mapped as tension at 7 out of 10 that fades with 3 long exhales, not evidence that I'm broken. This is why coherence is efficient: fewer false positives, fewer overreactions, fewer repairs. In a day with 10 decision points, 1 extra beat of clarity at each is a compounding return. Quantum non-locality keeps offering a humble metaphor. Correlations arise because the whole experiment sets the result, not any one piece alone. Your life is the same. Sleep, food, light, movement, breath, language, social contact, they are settings on the apparatus. Tweak them together and the pattern changes. If you only hammer one dial, motivation, say, you burn out. If you adjust several a little, you get a phase shift with no heroics. That is why small rituals matter more than grand vows. A 2-minute horizon walk after lunch may buy you an hour of high-quality focus at 3. A phone in the other room after 2200 hours may give you 30 minutes less sleep latency every night. Quiet interventions, loud dividends. Out-of-body reports sit at the edge of this discussion, and they can still teach sobriety. Self-location is plastic, awareness is durable. Treat that as design rather than mystery. You can train map flexibility so that when illness, anesthesia, or shock disrupts the coordinates, you are less frightened. Drills are simple: hold the sense of the body as one object in a larger field, add distant sound, add the scene space, keep all channels present. When the map loosens, knowing doesn't need to collapse. From that steadiness, medical processes get easier, hard conversations get kinder, grief gets room to flow. Use social space as your clearest laboratory. Speak from a body that is grounded, weight in the feet, breath low, eyes soft, and notice how quickly a tense room rephases. Ask a precise question instead of defending a stale certainty. Paraphrase the other person's view before offering your own. These are not manners, they are mechanics, reducing prediction errors so cooperation becomes cheaper than conflict. Teams that practice this do not waste cycles on heat, they spend them on work. Families that practice this transmit less stress across generations, they send forward steadier clocks. Let values be operational, not ornamental. Integrity means calendar math. You keep the promises you make to sleep, movement, and honest speech. Service means you create conditions where others can do their best work, meetings that start on time and end early, feedback that is concrete and kind, boundaries that are clear. Curiosity means you test protocols rather than collecting mantras. When values are embodied as timing and behavior, purpose stops being a slogan and becomes a signature, recognizable, repeatable, hard to counterfeit. You will still have storms. The instrument will still detune. On those days, shrink the ambition and keep the protocol. 3 breaths before send. Horizon once an hour. 10 slow exhales at lights out. Label states as events in awareness rather than identity claims. If the mind shouts, let the body lead, heavy feet, long exhale, soft eyes, tongue released. If the body churns, let the mind name precisely without legend. If both are loud, include more field, room volume, ambient sound, the fact of knowing itself. You cannot argue a hurricane into calm, but you can stop throwing patio furniture into the wind. Keep 1 page of numbers to anchor truth when moods swing. Resting pulse, hours slept, time to baseline after stress, number of reactive drafts you did not send, minutes spent in panoramic attention. Review weekly. The point is not to worship data, it is to prevent amnesia. Improvement is often too quiet to brag but too real to ignore when you track it. Let the page keep you honest and hopeful at once. Language is still leverage. Turn should into I intend to. Turn always/never into often/rarely. Turn why am I like this into what conditions make this likely, and which are in my reach today. Each swap returns degrees of freedom to the system. Degrees of freedom are dignity, options where habit once lived. As practice matures, ordinary life gains a clean shine. You answer the message you were avoiding without ceremony. You drink water before coffee without a speech about discipline. You stop mid-sentence to breathe when you feel heat in the chest, and the conversation swerves back to usefulness. You look up at the sky before you look down at the screen, and thought density drops. Nothing mystical, everything intimate. The world did not change, your relation to it did. And underneath it all, the simplest recognition keeps deepening. You are not confined to any single thing you can notice: body, thought, role, mood. You are the capacity that notices. From that capacity, biology becomes ally, physics becomes poetry you can test, and purpose becomes the steady choice to organize for coherence, in yourself, in your work, in your relationships. Keep choosing. Keep measuring. Keep widening the field until the day conducts itself with less push and more music, and when the music goes out of tune, as it will, remember the first move, include more, soften effort, let the pattern reorganize, and watch how reliably it does. Let your attention budget be explicit. Most days fail not from lack of hours but from scattering those hours across too many open loops. Start the morning by choosing 1 anchor task and 3 supporting moves that change conditions for everything else: sleep timing, a 10-minute walk in daylight, 1 generous conversation. These are not errands, they are phase setters. Do the anchor first or make it cheapest to start. Open the file, name the next tiny step, set a 5-minute timer, and widen vision as you begin. The system reads, "We are moving," and recruits chemistry accordingly. Momentum is physiology, not personality. Treat devices as collaborators you must train. The nervous system cannot distinguish between a tiger and a cascade of red badges. Create friction where you need it, grayscale the home screen, remove badges, schedule delivery of messages, park the phone in another room at night. Create glide where it serves you, 1 tap to open the document that matters, 1 ritual to end the day. You are not battling willpower, you are designing couplings. Attention then becomes a renewable resource because you stop spilling it through leaky seams. Compassion grows when perception widens. From a narrow stance, another person's behavior looks like malice or incompetence. From a wide stance, it looks like a nervous system solving for safety with the tools it has. This doesn't excuse harm, it explains it in a way that preserves your own coherence. You can set boundaries with less heat and more clarity when you see the physiology underneath the plot. "I can't discuss this well right now, I'll write back tomorrow," said with feet heavy and jaw soft, is not avoidance, it is engineering the conversation for a better outcome. Chronic pain, fatigue, or anxious loops ask for precision. Map the state with boring accuracy, location, size, shape, texture, movement, triggers, reliefs, time of day patterns. Track for 2 weeks while running the simplest coherence protocol, longer exhales, panoramic gaze, gentle movement, precise language. Do not grade your life, log data. Patterns appear. You discover that the ache spikes with sleep loss, that meetings under fluorescent lights narrow your field and tighten your jaw, that coffee after 1600 hours steals 2 hours from the night. None of this is news in theory, practice makes it operational. You are not shaming a symptom, you are building handles for it. Creativity flourishes in alternation, not in siege. The brain learns by toggling between focus and drift. Build cycles into your day, 25 minutes of narrow work, 5 minutes of horizon, 2 sets of gentle spinal waves or a slow walk. Let mind wandering carry the problem and return with a fresh model. Musicians and athletes know this, emptying the attention between bouts improves timing. The same is true for coding, writing, mediation, parenting. You are composing your day's tempo so that the melody, what matters, can ride it cleanly. When anger flashes, your old training may tell you to suppress or to vent. Both are expensive. A third path is to ground and name. Feet heavy, breath long, then report the physics, heat in my face, pressure in my throat, impulse to push. No legend about character, no litigation about the past. This converts a storm into data your system can regulate. Often the wave crests and passes within 90 seconds when it is witnessed without fuel. After the crest, act. Apologize, set a boundary, make the call, change the context that keeps generating the same pattern. You're not betraying the feeling, you're using it as signal. At scale, ethics emerges from coherence. A regulated organism wastes less energy on defense and has more to spend on care. The wide field notices externalities faster, the cost of a sharp email to a junior colleague, the long tail of a careless promise, the relief in a room when you stop needing to win. Kindness is not decoration, it is the system running with fewer error corrections. This is why leaders who breathe slower stabilize teams more reliably than those who lecture about values while running hot. Physiology speaks before words do. Let learning be bodily. When studying, read a page then close your eyes and feel the body for 10 breaths, let the new model settle into the field rather than skating on the surface. Teach what you learned aloud to an empty room, hearing your own voice recruits networks that silent reading doesn't. Sleep on it, consolidation is not optional. This cadence, input, embodiment, expression, rest, turns knowledge from fragments into structure. Structure is what endures when stress compresses your field. The old debate, materialism versus mysticism, shrinks when you care about workability. You do not need to decide the ultimate nature of consciousness to train attention in a way that improves your life and the lives you touch. Physics points to relation, biology shows rhythms, psychology maps habits and prediction, contemplative traditions provide protocols that survived because they helped people suffer less and love more. Take what is testable, drop what is performative, and keep a notebook. Authority flows from repeatable effects. Use edges as practice zones. The minute before you open an app that often hijacks you, the hallway outside a difficult meeting, the car after you park at home, the pause with fork in hand when you reach for another bite you no longer want. Each is a bell test for your training. Can you widen gaze, lengthen exhale, name 3 present sensations, and choose rather than be chosen? Celebrate micro wins. They compound faster than heroic sprints followed by crashes. When grief arrives as a heavy weather front, build ritual. Light a candle at the same time each evening, place a hand on the chest, and name who or what you miss. Let tears come without narrative, let the body do its ancient work. Walk under trees with no headphones. Speak a single line of truth to someone you trust. You are not solving grief, you are giving it a channel so it doesn't flood the whole house. Coherence here is not cheerfulness, it is the dignity of moving through pain without breaking your instrument. Relationships are laboratories that give frequent feedback. Practice 3 micro skills: mirroring, what I hear is, timing, a beat of silence after they stop speaking, and repair, naming your miss without defense. Do them from a body that is grounded, soft eyes, weight in the feet, slow exhale. Watch how trust accumulates when the other nervous system learns that yours can stay wide even when stakes are high. Trust is what lets teams innovate and families rest. It is physics at social scale, lowering noise so signals can travel without distortion. Keep one simple vow that makes the rest easier: protect sleep. Let the last light be dim and warm, the last words gentle, the last minutes panoramic rather than tunneled into a scream. Fall asleep as the field, not as the story. Wake by noticing the instant before thought completes. 2 bookends, same stance. This alone shifts your baseline enough that many character problems evaporate because they were sleep problems in costume. And keep the deepest observation within reach at all times: you are not confined to any single content of experience. You are the capacity in which content arises. From that capacity, you can honor the body as instrument and train it, honor the mind as modeler and refine it, honor relationships as networks and tend them. You act with less push and more participation, less legend and more data, less possession and more presence. When the signal gets noisy, as it will, return to the simplest move: widen the field, lengthen the exhale, soften the jaw, feel the feet, name what is here. Let the pattern reorganize. Then take the next clean step.